Now, may we please have your attention to view a brief safety briefing video.
Assalamualaikum dan selamat sejahtera. Dengan sukacita kami memohon perhatian kepada semua para jemputan pada majlis ini. Ini adalah video prosedur laluan kecemasan ICC. Dimaklumkan bahawa tiada latihan kecemasan akan dilakukan semasa majlis ini. Bagi para jemputan di dalam Dewan Musyawarah, terdapat dua laluan kecemasan. Jika terjadinya kecemasan, sila beredar keluar menuju ke kawasan letak kereta C. Patuhi arahan pegawai keselamatan yang bertugas yang ditempatkan di setiap laluan kecemasan bagi membantu pergerakan keluar jika berlaku sebarang kecemasan. Bergerak dengan tenang, cepat dan selamat. Sekian disampaikan makluman prosedur laluan kecemasan bagi para jemputan di dalam Dewan Musyawarah ini. Jawatan Kuasa Pandu ingin mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih di atas perhatian bis kita. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang berhormat Dayang Nik Hafimi binti Abdul Hadi, Legislative Council Member. Yang berhormat Siti Rozai Merianti binti Datuk Seri Laila Jasa Awang Haji Abdul Rahman, Legislative Council Member. Yang Mulia Permanent Secretaries, Deputy Permanent Secretaries, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Smart Nation Through Digital Transformation Conference. Before we begin, we would like to invite Yang Mulia Awang Muhammad Zakaria bin Haji Muhammad Saleh to bless today's event with the recital of Surah Al-Fatihah and Doa Selamat.
Astaghfirullah al-azim alladhi la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum wa atubu ilayh. إلى حضرة النبي المصطفى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه الكرام ولوالدنا ولأهلنا ولأولادنا ولمشايخنا ولمن حضر إلينا ولمن غاب عنا ولأحيائنا ولأمواتنا وللمواظبين على هذا المجلس ولمن كان سببا في جمعنا بأن الله الكريم ينور القلوب ويغفر الذنوب ويستر العيوب ويفجر الكروب ويحفظنا بما حفظ به الذكر وينصرنا بما نصر به الرسل وأن الله الكريم يجعل مجلسنا هذا محاطا بالخيرات والمسرات والأنوار والبركات ويقضي لنا جميع الحاجات بجاه خير البريات وبحق الفاتحة المعظمة وسبع المثاني من القرآن العظيم. الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأزواجه وأهل بيته وذريته وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه صلاة تنشر بها السرور وتهون بها الأمور وسلم تسليما كثيرا دائما إلى يوم البعث والنشور. لا إله إلا الله العظيم الحليم. لا إله إلا الله رب العرش العظيم. لا إله إلا الله رب السماوات والأرض ورب العرش الكريم. اللهم إنا نسألك خير هذا اليوم فتحه ونصره ونوره وبركاته وهداه ونعوذ بك من شره والشر ما فيه والشر ما بعده إلى يوم الدين. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه مباركا عليه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد ذي القدر العظيم وعلى آل نبي الله العظيم وعلى أصحابه العظام. اللهم إنا نسألك بأن لك الحمد لا إله إلا أنت الحنان المنان بديع السماوات والأرض ذو الجلال والإكرام يا حي يا قيوم. اللهم ألف بين قلوبنا على الخير وأصلح ذات بيننا واهدنا سبل السلام ونجنا من الظلمات إلى النور وجنبنا الفحش ما ظهر منها وما بطن. اللهم رب جبريل وميكائيل وإسرافيل فاطر السماوات والأرض عالم الغيب والشهادة أنت تحكم بين عبادك فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون اهدنا لما اختلف فيه بإن الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. Allahumma inna nas'aluka khair hadzal majlis persidangan Smart Nation through Digital Transformation wa barakatuhu awwalahu wa khair ma ba'dah wa na'udzu bika min syarrihi wa afatihi awwalahu wa akhirahu wa ma ba'dah. Allahumma inna na'udzu bika min syururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. اللهم طهر قلوبنا من النفاق وأعمالنا من الرياء وألسنتنا من الكذب وأعيننا من الخيانة فإنك تعلم خائنة الأعين وما تخفي الصدور. اللهم إنا نسألك بأسمائك الحسنى وصفاتك العظمى وكلماتك التامة أن تلحظ بعينتك ربانية وتحفظ بحفظ وقايتك الصمدانية كبawah dulu yang maha mulia Paduka Seri Baginda Sultan Haji Hasan Bulqiyah Mu'azzadin wa Daulah Ibn al-Marhum Sultan Haji Omar Ali Saifuddin Sa'adul Khaliwaddin Sultan Pertuan Negara Brunei Darussalam. اللهم احفظه في نفسه وأهله وأولاده وأحفاده وقراباته ورعيته أجمعين. اللهم أده متمتعا بطول البقاء متوجا باتجان الصحة والهنا. اللهم أعطل عمره مصلحا للموظفين والرعية والبلاد وبلغ مقاصده لطريق الهدى والرشاد. اللهم اجعل مملكته نجار بروني دار السلام معمورة بالتقدم والسلام والعدل والصلاح والبركات بين الأنام والرخاء والأمن والنصر وسائر بلاد الإسلام. اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل لهما فينا ولا معنا ولا من يتبعنا شقيا ولا مطرودا ولا محروما. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من البرص والجنون والجذام ومن سيء الأسقام. اللهم اصرف عنا وعن سلطاننا وبلادنا وجميع المسلمين في كل مكان البلاء والوباء والطعن والطاعون وسائر الأمراض وقنا شر الردى بلطفك يا لطيف يا خبير إنك على كل شيء قدير. ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amin, Amin, Ya Rabbal Alamin. Now, without further ado, we would like to invite our moderator, Mr. Alan Lai, to kick off today's conference, a conversation on the Smart Nation, digital transformation, and the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Looks like I need to update my profile picture. Yang Berhormat, honourable members of the Legislative Council, Permanent Secretaries, Deputy Permanent Secretaries, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning and a very warm welcome to this very important discussion, a conversation on the Smart Nation, digital transformation and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Would you please join me in welcoming to the stage Yang Berhormat Dayang Nik Hafimi binti Abdul Hadi, Legislative Council Member and Member of the Digital Economy Council, Yang Mulia Awang Haji Muhammad Nazri bin Haji Muhammad Yusof, Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Transport and Info Communications and the Secretary of the Digital Economy Council, and Yang Mulia Puan Haslina Taib, CEO of Dynamic Technologies, ASEAN Business Advisory Council Member and Chair of the ASEAN Business and Investment Summit 2021. In 1911, 110 years ago, my grandfather was born in a place known as Brookton. It had a coal mine and was one of Brunei's major exports. At the time in the world, the richest man was John D. Rockefeller, who was the founder and chairman of Standard Oil. In that year, in 1911, a company by the name of IBM was also founded. In 1942, my dad was born, then more commonly known as Muara. The coal mine was closed. It didn't survive the financial crisis of 1928, and oil was discovered on a commercial basis in Brunei in 1929. Things were changing. The second industrial revolution was changing the way the world worked, the way Brunei's economy was adapting. People were moving faster and further. Henry Ford was the richest man in the world with Ford Motor Company. You can have any car you like as long as it's black, he famously said. Fast forward to 2010, just 10 years ago, my son was born in Bandar Seri Begawan, and the world had changed significantly. Technology had allowed offshore oil and gas to be found on a commercial basis for Brunei, and it significantly changed our economy. Since 2010, the world has changed even faster. So the generations of our forefathers, our grandparents to our fathers, the shift was at a very fast pace. But since then, our children, the time that my son has been born, Apple, around 2008, was the 337th largest company in the world. And today, just around 10 years later, it's the largest. The richest man in the world at the time of my son being born was Bill Gates, Microsoft. Now, as we all know, it's Amazon. Data. The shift in focus, the shift in the world's needs, the world's uses is moving, and it's moving faster than it has ever before. The way we are preparing for the future, the Ministry of Transport and Info Communications has a pivotal role in establishing and shaping the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure of our country. I'd like to turn to Tuan Nazri. You are the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry and Secretary of the Digital Economy Council. Brunei has developed the Digital Economy Master Plan 2025 to help us prepare for this very fast-changing world. Oil and gas will continue to be very important for Brunei, but with the rising need of renewable energy and an unforeseeable future with regards to the price of oil and gas, I would argue that your ministry has a real crucial role to play for our economic future. Could you share with us your vision, the ministry's vision and plan to help Brunei become a smart nation and thrive in this fourth fast-moving industrial revolution?
Thank you, Alan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang berhormat members of Legislative Council, Permanent Secretaries, Deputy Permanent Secretaries, ladies and gentlemen. It's not fun to talk about first thing in the morning on a Friday. I think I'm recalling our conversation earlier, talking about data is the new oil. Let me ask everyone here, if you still, nowadays, if you go to any of those sales call, what do you look at? You still remember the days where you look at the number of SMSs, the number of voice minutes that you have? Or now you just look at the data? I'm sure if you do a survey now, not many will say I'm looking at minutes, I'm looking at number of SMS. All look at the data and the speed. So with that in mind, today I'll be sharing with you a few things, three things basically. I'll share with you a bit more about Digital Economy Master Plan mentioned by Alan earlier. I think just to refresh everybody's memory about it. It was launched last year, 2020, alhamdulillah, with the consent of His Majesty. And then any update on it since its launch. I'll be talking about a key point of the master plan, which is alignment. Alignment of it and the governance of it. And the third part, I'll be talking a bit more about innovation. Innovation here, I'll be talking about why it's important. Where are we now in terms of innovation? Let's put things clear. Alan mentioned the ministry actually is, prepared the master plan, but in fact it's a whole of nation, whole of government approach. Everybody here has a role to play in mapping our digital transformation. So let me begin with the digital master plan, economic master plan. I'm sure everybody is aware of its vision, which is actually smart nation through digital transformation, with three main outcomes. The first is actually a digital and future-ready society. Secondly, a vibrant and sustainable economy. And thirdly, is a digitally conducive ecosystem. We have a council that started in 2019. Just an update here. We've actually tweaked a bit the council. We've added the Minister of Development to the council on top of the members mentioned in the existing book. So what is it all about? It's actually talking about digital economy, where we want to move towards smart nation. Everybody, since we embarked in preparing the master plan in was it 2018 or 2019? I think somebody out there can help me with the actual dates. We were asking ourselves what it means to be a smart nation. So we come up with three characteristics, very simple characteristics. Smart nation is where we have a vibrant and diversified economy. Secondly, we have improved competitiveness and economic growth by developing the infrastructure, the innovation, the data capability, human capital, and of course, other resources that is required. And thirdly, and more importantly for us, improve quality of life, public services, schools, safety, mobility of people, and to achieve the environmental sustainability. With that in mind, we identified 4 strategic thrusts. One is the industry digitalization. Second, government digitalization. Thirdly, is thriving digital industry. And of course, importantly, manpower and talent development. With that, we also identified key enablers, such as we must have a smart nation platform. Secondly, data policy and governance. Thirdly, policy and regulatory framework. Cybersecurity is important, and R&D and innovation. Quickly moving towards how the governance. The master plan is actually a living document. It's not a stagnant document. So from time to time, in fact, regularly we looked at it and where we are. As you all know, since the onset of COVID-19, some of these things have been accelerated. But the key to the governance is we give the autonomy to the ministries to have their own digital transformation plan. They know the sector, they know the industry. They are not talking about transforming the ministry, but they're talking about transforming the industry. But what's important, they need to address key points such as jobs and skill, productivity, innovation, and also, don't forget, it's not just for the Brunei market, but we need to make it an export-oriented approach. So in terms of alignment, when we talk about the master plan, the digital transformation plan, we're looking at leveraging on the flagship projects. We identified 3 flagship projects, which is actually, for me, is fundamental. The first one, it must be a common database. We call it a national information hub. Secondly, we need to have a common digital ID. And of course, we must have a common digital payment hub. And with that, we can develop specific sector key technology solutions. Just to share a bit of trivia, how many of you knows how many people are actually has signed up to eDarussalam? I don't know if I can have show of hands. How many of you are on eDarussalam? Quite a number. Thank you very much. I think the data I got yesterday from agency was about 36% of the population of Brunei is on eDarussalam, which is a good start. We would like to have more. So that will be the basis of why we need to have a digital ID. Talking about innovation, which is my last point, I think you all know our strength. Our strength is we have high connectivity. I think Ajija is there. I think we have almost 100% connectivity for the whole country. For mobile phones, some of us has got 2. I got 2 here. So I think a few of you got 2. So mobile penetration rate is quite high. But in terms of speed that we are getting, I think with the restructuring of the telecommunication sector, which was started in 2019, and with the launch of the various services in 2020. We've now achieved, in terms of global speed, if you look at speed test data, for Brunei, the download speed for mobile broadband is about 52 Mbps. The whole world average is about 54. We are not bad. But so in a way, we are moving in the right direction. We have more options now. We have more affordability. The packages are more affordable. But in terms of standing where we are in innovation, if you look at the GII index, the Global Innovation Index ranking, Brunei is 6 in ASEAN. Brunei is 6 in ASEAN. So we have a lot of things to do. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that we will innovate. So I think the message is clear. We need to leverage on our strength, which has actually, we have quite a significant, highly educated workforce. I think the latest statistic that we have is 79% of our professionals in IT is actually a local. But in terms of job seekers, you'll be surprised to see 10% of job seekers, about 1,000 of them, more than 1,000 of them, with ICT education. So we have a very high number of highly, educated people to move in the ICT sector. So we need to leverage on that. We need to leverage on connectivity. We need to leverage on this, and of course, where the innovation comes from. I'm looking at you. Everyone here plays a role in innovation. I believe, innovation will come from the private sector. So you play a role here, the private sector. Government will facilitate, but private sector play a role in terms of the innovation. I think that would be a good start, Alan, for this morning.
Thank you very much, Tuan Nazri. That sets us off really well. I'd like to move to Puan Haslina and move on to the business side of things, and then come to YB Hafimi on the societal impact. Puan Haslina, you're the CEO of Brunei's largest tech company, Dynamic Technologies. Many of the e-services, which Tuan Nazri mentioned, you've installed and designed, many of which we take for granted as almost our everyday use. We now live in a time where everyone's got a smartphone, data is crucial, and access to technology and things like artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the Internet of Things. It's changing the way we work and the business landscape. How do you see technology and data changing the business in Brunei? And what do you think we need to do to make sure we're moving ahead and we don't get left behind with the innovation within ASEAN?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Alan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm just looking at people's head, right? Often when I talk at work or in conferences, a lot of people actually looking at the screen. So I'm going to watch how many people are actually listening to the physical conference itself. But joking aside, though, talking about your children, right? I always feel threatened by my kids. My son is about to go to university, and this week, he's actually setting up a network, right? He's setting up a network, and it will be completed within a week. Whilst, like us, we have project management, we have change management, we have infrastructure specialists, etc. An equivalent, okay, admittedly, it's just one unit. We actually do distributed network, but that normally takes us about 9 months. So 1 week versus 9 months, right? And I looked at him, I didn't budge, and I thought to myself, okay, how did you do it? What did you do? And I asked this question, right? And the answers that I get is all about puzzles. It's all about structure. It's all about building blocks. It's all about how you build small blocks and standardizing a lot of the programs that we do and just plug and play. And for those of you who does programming, and I wasn't doing programming when I was younger, and I don't know how I ended up in this job, but for those people who did programming before, compared to programming now, and the impact of digital economy on all these back-end structure, and I'm not talking about hardware, I'm talking about software, application, database, data analytics, AI, IoT, they all are collaborative effort. Gone were the days, even the companies that I work with now over 10 years, gone were the days where you just work in silos, right? So today, data analytics requires a lot of integrated communities talking, business communities talking to each other. So I feel threatened by what's coming out next. How do I not feel threatened by what's coming out next? In terms of digital transformation, is for us to work together. And I see it's really nice to see today a mixture of mature people and younger people. And it get reflected in the workspace, in businesses these days. The younger ones wants to push emerging technologies. The older guys wants to ensure that the framework, the tools, the policies are in place so that we can actually have some sort of rules with regard to sandbox, for instance, in Brunei. How do we then apply emerging technologies into what we require to change, right? So we don't want to make the rule too strict. We want to actually ensure, however, that innovation to actually service digital transformation can be fluid. And some practical example of that is how we do payments, for instance, platform to platform. How do we then, transverse that with regard to building everything centrally? And then it comes to me that tomorrow's world is going to be all about distributed ledger. And for those of you who have this fancy word about blockchain, right? It's all about distributed ledgers. And that's why when I was starting my profession, I was a medical student, and then I went in to do accountancy because I really flunked my first year. But it wasn't so bad. But yesterday's job as being an accountant, tomorrow's fintech world, that accountancy had now moved to a different skill set, right? It's all about how you can survive in a digital world. So skill is one thing. And I just realized, Alan, that I haven't actually followed the script that I'm asked to read on my screen. But I must just tell you, because I was prepared a script by work and everyone else, work in, what do I work with now? Dynamic Technologies, and also in ASEAN. Because I have a lot of responsibilities, Dynamic Technologies are just one company that work with a lot of companies. And I really am trying to call in this collaborative business, because we won't be able to actually work together like how we used to do, only 2 or 3 partners. We need the whole of the room to work with us. So for business purposes, the distributed ledger is one thing. If you guys don't get anything out of this conference, is the one thing that we really need to focus on. Because, the digital ledger is based on trusted services. It actually have got, you need to trust a system or transaction. And the more people get into the distributed, trusted system, right, the source can be verified by many parties, by multiple parties. And for those of you that is now searching what blockchain is on their phone, because they start to look at their phones. This is an interesting concept that I'm very proud Brunei is about to actually join, hopefully, with the rest of the world. We are ahead of this game, and I hope that we will remain ahead of the game. But can you imagine, from a citizen, if I just start with citizen, right? Your data, your health data, your ID is actually stored centrally, not centrally, distributed, right? Everyone can then, every time you do a transaction, everyone can prove that that's you. And anything that is not trusted can be seen by others that actually had done that transaction. So businesses, what does it mean by businesses? Traditional business will not survive in the future if you don't change. You've got to have a distributed ledger in you. If you look at supply chain traceability, right? Where you get your services. How do you actually combine the services? How do you pull data? We just talked about tourism when we launched yesterday's, right? We talk about food. How do we then ensure that the halalness of something unless you actually invite a lot of data being pulled by different sources. So a combination of distributed ledger and data analytics is what I can only say here. But everyone else in this, I hope in this conference, both here and virtually, will be one day the future of Ford, the future of Amazon, the future, because it's completely different formula so we have the opportunities in Brunei and across the region to do so.
Thank you, Puan Haslina, for painting that picture of the business future. YB Hafimi, I'd like to turn to you now. A successful entrepreneur, you're a member of the APEC Business Advisory Council and the Legislative Council as well. With regards to Tuan Nazri's point on the quality of life and Puan Haslina's point on education and skills, what impact are you seeing that technology is having on our society? And what do you think we need to do to focus on with regards to education and skills?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Alan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera as well to all colleagues in the room. I think first and foremost, I come from a background which is most likely the lowest in tech or digital transformation in the construction industry. But at the same time, understanding the need for change is why we're all in this room together. Just now, Tuan Radin, when I was coming, he says, so, are you reading from a script? Are you off the cuff? Or, I am adaptively learning. And this is where our society is at the moment. I'd just like to give you a very quick story. We've run a little initiative in one of the villages in Brunei under Yayasan's guidance. And the way we saw the transformation running this initiative over a year is the fact that we enabled 20 single mothers, ladies from low incomes, to register their companies on the spot, thanks to Dynamic, with the onboarding of ROCBN, just like that. But the look on their faces when you did this for them, and the fact that they could automatically become company owners there and then with full certification, that to me is how the impacts to society has been and the role of digital transformation to Brunei. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of us remember the heydays of multiple forms, to get your 16, 17, etc., etc. But you could do it on the weekend now, which is fantastic. And I think, to me, that is one of the positive impacts. Obviously, next in line will be being able to get your financing done online, etc., etc. But I think we're not far down the road from that. And I also think ultimately, as has been mentioned by Tuan Nazri as well as Puan Haslina, is the fact that adaptive learning in the way, how do we educate our future generations to be malleable in their understanding process. And I totally agree that even my own son, they learn off everything. They learn off YouTube, they learn off the net. There is no traditional learning platforms anymore. Although psychologically, 1 year of online learning can be a bit much, I'm sure for teachers as well. So there has to be that blended approach. So I think for me, that little story of how we've been able to impact to society is where you will see the leaps and bounds of where Brunei will be headed in the future, inshallah. So, Alan, for me, I think that the role of what the Digital Economy Council has done in laying the groundwork, but the methodology of how we undertake the pathways along the digital economy master plan is really in the hands, largely, I would say, of the private sector. Not to discount what the government puts in place, but the private sector is the engine of growth. And I think that's something we have to remind ourselves more greatly in such uncertain times. Thank you.
Thank you very much, YB. Ladies and gentlemen, please, we've got about 10, 15 minutes for Q&A. There's some questions on the wall with Slido, but if you'd like to ask questions the good old-fashioned way, please do put up your hand and ask a question and introduce yourself, or if you'd like to make a comment and add to the conversation. We've got a great mix of people in the room, from telcos to Ministry of Education, through to business as well. The first question that's got the most thumbs up from what I can see is, data is the new oil. What's being done to increase data integration across ministries, serving as big data for the government, as currently many are still on silos? Tuan Nazri, I think that's really meant for you.
Thank you, Alan. I think it's a conversation, so meaning the answers is not just from the stage, but from you guys down there. Is this a question from agency, I suppose, or someone from agency? I think the simple answer is, yesterday, I don't know whether it's pure coincidence, I think we launched under agency 3 things. One is OGPC3, One Government Private Cloud, National Centralized Database, NCDB, and National Information Hub. So this is the starting point of integrating all the data. I remember my point earlier about alignment. We need to, I think a lot of the tasks of the Secretariat or the Smart Nation Office is to talk to people, be it in the government, be it in the private sector, to align. So one of the key flagship projects is the National Information Hub. So that's where we'll address this issue about the data integration. I think I keep on sharing with friends. One of our aspirations is to move away from the days where wherever you go, you'll be asked for copies of your IC. I think if you go to DST, Progressive, or Imagine, they'll still ask for copies of your IC. If you go for anywhere, they'll still ask for your copies of your IC. So one of our aspirations is to get rid of this. So wherever you go, there'll be data integration. So the starting steps has been taken with the launch yesterday. I think. So that's why I suspect this question was coming from agency. I think they're promoting what they launched yesterday. Thank you.
Nothing like planted questions. Haslina, can I turn to you about cashless society? The infrastructure and the technology is already there. We can be a cashless society. I mean, the banks in Brunei already have some of that being used. It's not quite as efficient as some other countries where you just tap your card and the payment flies out of your account. But why are we not a cashless society yet, given the technology exists?
I think the one answer is approval. I'm talking about it from a business point of view. There are the whole payment system are actually being governed by the banks. The banks have got a lot to lose. It's great that I'm not a CEO of a bank, so I can say this, but they've got a lot to lose being an agent of payment. Imagine these days what you're talking about, paperless. They actually, digital currency, digital payment. It's a scary concept, right? At the moment, we are talking about mobile phone. I have to be very careful because Radin is right in front of me. We have to be very careful because all mobile platforms still go through the bank. There is no platform to platform. There is no pure platform to platform. The question that people are alluding to, right, with regard to cashless society, it transacts using digital currency, which means that every single transaction you do, right, is accounted for by the translation of goods and services into digital units. So if you think about that, start with that, and then transacting between people to people, people to government, borders, across borders, etc. It is fast, it is cheap, right? So there is a reason why I think the audience wants to move this forward. But in terms of technology, I can only say to you that the back-end infrastructure is very old. right? You are required to go through a gate. That's all I can say in terms of technology without having to be too technical. You've got to go through a gate, whether it's actually a gate for RTGS, a gate for centralized exchange system, whether it's a gate through legal rules, and hence, this. In ASEAN, we're trying to actually look at Digital Connect to see how we can allow society to have digital currency and yet safe, and being able to trace, just like I say in the opening remarks, in terms of being able to trace transactions. So I think before you do cashless society, respectably, I think MTIC have got the right way forward, is to actually ensure that you've got digital ID, details of how you prove that you are who you are before we actually go into transaction, before we actually put those transactions into better system. So cashless society is just around the corner. It's just the will to do it, right? So I think I can't believe I've been here for a long time. Normally I go to another country and actually do my own things, right? But there's a lot of opportunity if we pull ourselves together under the new roadmap, right? All of you, I think, can push, help me to push the relevant agencies to relax a little bit, do a sandbox in how we can actually do cashless. I think we should go and knock the doors of all the relevant parties and say, look, guys, the sandbox, when is it going to be approved? I think that's the key.
Selina, while you've got the microphone, the thumbs up is rapidly increasing for PayPal payments. How could you just address the issue of incoming digital payments from abroad? The key challenge for Brunei as we grow is exporting. How do we get our SMEs to export more? To export more, we need to receive payments digitally. What are your thoughts on how do we improve the platforms for digital payments from abroad?
Okay, so all of you, PayPal is so yesterday, right? So whoever has got PayPal, just go out and then find a friend, open a bank account, take out their money. There are better platforms out there, but there are similar issues to PayPal. You can actually receive money, but you can't take it out. Sounds like Hotel California. You can check in, but you can never check out. That's the issue we have, right? Is the ability to take money out of a transaction. And I must say, sometimes when you solve a problem, you don't solve a problem in front of you. You solve the bigger picture. If you look at digital currency, I'm going to be a little bit more provocative here, and then so that all the question becomes very today. Digital currency. A lot of people are actually transacting. It's not. You're not allowed to do trade, digital trade, currency trade right now. But there are a lot of mining. There's a lot of interesting businesses happening. So to answer the question, why is it still not? There is a workaround to it. And in our solution to the government, as far as dynamic technologies is concerned, it's the back end. You need to actually convert everything into digital transaction, immutable transaction, smart ledger. And this is the safest because it's transparent. Anything that actually goes somewhere else, it will be detected by one of you, right? So PayPal will still be there. Those people, especially doing e-commerce, I think you could. There are other platforms. Even PayPal, you can actually say, okay, put your credit card to it, and then you just have to spend money on credit card. There are workarounds, right? But tomorrow, what you should be doing, those people who are inventing, who are actually setting up business, the digital transaction has to be ensuring that you build your businesses in a platform that will actually change with your business. Don't get stuck into application of one multinational. Don't get stuck into, dare I say, banks that requires you to open a bank account. There are virtual bank accounts now that you can actually do. That's a business.
The shifting, and fintech, the shifting trends, which I'd love to come to. We're starting to run out of time. YB Hafimi, if I could invite you to address the issue of being a smart nation and our heritage of and our national philosophy of MIB, the Brunei and Malay Islamic monarchy heritage. How do we balance modernity with our values? And if you could, any final concluding remarks?
I guess I have the most difficult question in the room. Okay, listen, look, to me, essentially, the way Bruneians represent themselves and in the way you conduct yourself, it is in that approach that you maintain the integrity of our MIB ideology. How we use the tools of the time. Okay, now at this particular point in time, we're heavily into digital. We're heavily into transformation and putting everything on a digital platform. The usage of that, it's accustomed to our cultural values. Do we project that as well to our regional counterparts when we can transact business? Do we look at business transactions, as they say, in an ethical manner with what we're accustomed to doing in Brunei? It's not an answer per se, but I think in the way we carry on the business ethics of how we transform and put ourselves on digital platform is one way to demonstrate that. Number two is in terms of leapfrogging and in terms of understanding where we're at, we also have to negate some of these things that have always been holding us back. Some of the outdated requirements, some of the fact that we only think within transacting within Brunei. Should we not be building solutions that actually go beyond where we're at? Should we not be spreading our wings more that whatever we identify as a solution for Brunei can actually be carried out within our Borneo Island territory? Do we not use our government platforms now to negotiate that a little bit better compared to just being entrenched within Brunei? I think with digital technology, you need the mass market, otherwise it doesn't impact you in that way. So these are suggestions, these are not, set in stone answers. But I think just in the way we carry ourselves, in the way we design our solutions, that's where we imprint how we treat our national ideology.
Thank you very much, YB. Tuan Nazri, your final comments, please. And if you could reflect on the questions of how do we get our citizens ready? You're doing a great job of establishing the infrastructure and laying the groundwork, but how do you get the people, the society ready for this digital transformation? And if a brief comment on the issue of cybersecurity as well, please.
Thank you, Alan. If you allow me 1 minute to answer about MIB, I think I hope everyone here agrees that you don't see MIB as a hindrance. Actually, it's a guidance. If you look at the Digital Economy Master Plan book, I think we clearly stated, we are guided by we're guided by Makashid al-Sharia and also how it was written. So we see it as a complement. I think as a guidance. And Brunei is unique in a way that that's how we're going to have to find the right balance to approach this. On how do we make sure our citizens are ready for digital transformation? Actually, to me, it's down to basics. We have to get people, used to using things. If you recall, I don't know, again, coming back to my earlier point, 10 years ago, we were talking about SMS, we were talking about the number of minutes of voice. But now everybody, I think almost everybody is on WhatsApp. Some people are on Telegram, I think some people on Signal, so everybody is using. So you have no choice, So once you used to it, on top of my head, I've only known 2 persons who doesn't have any, WhatsApp. So the rest has WhatsApp. So it's a matter of getting people to using it. I'll give you an example. I think one of the common issues that has been highlighted about, making us ready for digital transformation is the ID. I think I mentioned about Idarussalam earlier. We have about 136,000. 37% of the country is on it. 2 common issues. One, people say it's difficult. And secondly, people say you forget your password. But I'll ask the question in a different way. How do you remember your ATM PIN number? Because you use it every day. Your internet banking number, you use it every day. So the key to making sure citizens are ready for digital transformation is making sure they're using all the application, they're using all the services, they're getting used to all the services. So that slowly, surely we'll be able to transform. Like it or not, I think I mentioned to one of our earlier colleagues, you have no choice. If you don't transform now, 5 years down the line, somebody will transform you. So I think you have no choice. We have no choice. We have to do it. On the question of cybersecurity, I think just one sentence answer. That's why we set up Cybersecurity Brunei. So it comes along with it, the cybersecurity, currently we're drafting the cybersecurity order. So that's how we're going to make sure all the cybersecurity infrastructure is in place. They have a very good booth outside, so you come and visit them. So that's how we're going to ensure we have the necessary cybersecurity infrastructure. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Tuan Nazri. Puan Haslina, your concluding thoughts, please. In particular, I'd like if you could address what's happening with ASEAN. As chair of the ASEAN Business and Investment Summit and an ASEAN Business Advisory Council member, how can we tap into what's happening in the region and globally, and what should Brunei be doing as a country to make sure that we are staying abreast with the technological advancements of the day?
I think, speaking from business, right, there is a question there with regard to data. Yesterday, we just set up, YB is actually the chair for ASEAN Business Council for Brunei. This is the Brunei year, and I'm also chairing the ASEAN Business Investment Summit. It's a summit that you should never miss, because this is the opportunity of the future. We're going to talk about circular economy. We're going to talk about digital transformation. So we just set up a working group chaired by myself in terms of digital transformation. So please don't disappoint me. I need some inventors and innovators attend it, because these are all opportunities. Think about data flows, right, and how we can build data flows around businesses around it. MTIC, I think AITI is actually leading it, is in discussion to do personal data protection, and I think it's a welcoming effort. Whilst we're actually doing data, transferring data to everywhere, we do need to understand what is our right in terms of personal data. There need to be clarity as to what, because a lot of people said, oh, well, my personal data is being used, but you did actually click when you download an app. You actually click, yes, people can collect data where you've been going onto the website, and then they're getting collection of these data, marketing you, and then popping up on Instagram, popping up on your Facebook, on your LinkedIn, all the advertisement, because there is a background on artificial intelligence picking up on those. So data privacy is not just Brunei. Somebody was talking about, telcos, it's you again, Radin, pushing for data and using the data itself, personal people. It's not just that. Every day, there is opportunity to collect people data. So we need the protection for that. You need to understand what is your right and how data is being used. And my conclusion to this is that an education, it's a stage education today. Somebody was asking how, in relation to data, how does digital ID going to solve my everyday problem? We got lots of duplications, right? How do I prove someone is Alan Lai? How do I prove that it's not Alan Shim? So Alan Lai, if you look at one table, right, if you start with a block, the original block, to say where he's born, where he's actually, which hospital he was born, what the father, the mother, what is the DNA, what is the blood, etc. So you start with a block that you can never change. Then, if I look at this room, right, the next desk is going to say, oh, he got married so-and-so, hopefully just once in your life. So the guy that actually recording all the marriage things, right? Not just the national registration, the place that he went to marry Empire, or the catering services. So everyone proof that's Alan, right? And then there are the transaction school, right? So Dr. Chin is not interested in your qualification because he knows that you are actually, able to speak, very well in conferences. But his institution, Ministry of Education, will actually have proof that you went to these places, you went abroad, etc. That is another confirmation who Alan is. So this web of information confirm who you are. It solved the problem of duplication. This is the tomorrow's technology. Think like that. If you have a smart ledger built within our business community, there's a lot of new business model that we can build for Brunei. So you no longer have to sell it to the retail in City Square, the new shop houses. You no longer think local. You think globally, because how does data behave? How does data get used? How does the media get picked up and then sell those marketing? So all those people that are small today in Brunei will be big tomorrow. All the people that wants to do halal certification, no longer did you need to wait for halal. You can actually set up your own QR code, right? And things that YB Hafimi in my previous life, he was pushing for QR codes across the region to trace halal certification. You don't need to have multinational to think of things through. You can build small application. This is open. We are quite borderless. So get involved in the investment summit. I'm not actually advertising, but get involved and shake hands with all the people, not just big ones, outside one that has got bigger ideas. And you don't underestimate how educated we are in Brunei, how creative we are. Get in there. Just don't be very afraid to invent the business of tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Puan Haslina. Alan Shim does a wonderful job when he was with Radio Television Brunei. Was a great DJ. I was once told how great my show was on RTB, and I just said, thank you very much, sir. Data is the new oil. Innovation is changing the way we work. It is moving very, very fast. Andy Grove, the founder and CEO of Intel for a very long time, once famously said, "Only the paranoid survive." Ladies and gentlemen, stay paranoid, stay inventive, and embrace technology. Would you please join me in thanking our wonderful panel, YB Hafimi, Tuan Nazri, Puan Haslima, for a very exciting conversation on tech. Sorry we couldn't get through to all the questions, but ladies and gentlemen, I'll pass the floor back to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you to our distinguished panel and Mr. Alan Lai for the exciting insights. And now, may I invite Yang Berhormat Dayang Nik Hafimi binti Abdul Hadi, Yang Berhormat Siti Rozai Merianti binti Datuk Seri Laila Jasa Awang Haji Abdul Rahman, Yang Mulia Permanent Secretaries and Deputy Permanent Secretaries, Yang Mulia Acting Chief Executive Authority for Info Communication Technology Industry of Brunei Darussalam, AITI, and our distinguished speakers and moderators for the day to come to the front for a group photo session.
told to take a selfie, so I just do what I'm told. Okay. Everybody say data. Kennedy, come down.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite our guests to take a quick refreshment at the back of this hall and return back to your seats as we will resume the conference at 10:10 a.m. You are welcome to take your food to the table while listening to our next speaker at any time. Thank you.